What's going on, everybody? Let's Talk Jets Radio. Bear with me here because this is going to be a very long video that is going to dive into the dilemma surrounding New York Jets season ticket holders and the obvious answer to the question as far as whether or not they should renew. I think the answer is clear at this point once you look at the last 12 years of organizational futility and really the lack of answers surrounding why anybody could possibly want to renew. We all know the Jets sent out their invoices last week asking for early payments by November 15th for next season, a season where you have no idea who the GM is going to be, who the head coach is going to be, who the quarterback's going to be, who's going to want to come work for this owner. So many unknowns around this team. I also don't care what other organizations are doing this if they're asking for payments early, because in all likelihood, those teams have given their fans playoffs within the last 14 years. In all likelihood, those teams have given their fans a home playoff game at some point within the last 2 decades, something Jet fans have not experienced. The Jets are very unique in their situation right now. Whatever the standards are for other organizations and how they deal with their tickets should not apply to Jet fans. Prices going up 3 out of the last 4 years should not happen when the product is shit. Even worse is that season ticket holders are paying a premium price for tickets that are ultimately worthless come November and December almost every year. You're talking about games that you can literally get tickets that are about 20% of what you paid for up front. You're talking about, for me as a 300 level season ticket holder, the money I spent, usually more often than not, there's about 4 or 5 games that I could have sat in the lower level and saved money for what I paid for my upper level seats. So with that in mind, why would anybody possibly want to renew? What are the perks? The biggest one has always been you get access to playoff tickets, right? And it's different now than in the 90s. There wasn't StubHub and all the secondary markets. Now you can get tickets on the off chance that they actually have a home playoff game, which they haven't in over 2 decades. Other than that, there is nothing that comes with being a season ticket holder. They send you a box in the mail with a yearbook, a schedule magnet, and coupons to go get wine, watches, and t-shirts. And again, the money you're paying up front compared to what the value of those tickets are by the time you reach November, and that's where I'm going to dive in here, starting with 2012, because first year in that building, 2010, yes, good team, a little bit of excitement because they ultimately made the playoffs, back-to-back AFC championship games. There was a buzz with those Rex teams, but even still, in the back of many fans' minds, it was frustrating because there was some excitement and buzz in the building at MetLife that first year, but they killed the real buzz because the 80,000 that were there week in, week out through the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, they remember what that building sounded like. They remembered a true home field advantage. And we had a lot of games where the crowd legitimately took over. Colts game, 41-0. Jaguar playoff game. The Packer game that won the last division title. All those games, the home field advantage and the crowd factor was fucking huge. And even though the Jets were good in that first year at MetLife, you can sense that there wasn't that same buzz. It was about the luxury suites and so much else inside the building that wasn't about football and the crowd environment. And that was unfortunate. So then you get to 2011, and that was obviously the Victor Cruz year, but still a relatively exciting year where there was some hope. Obviously, they continued the pattern that we would see over the next 2 decades of destroying quarterbacks. They took away Sanchez's offensive line piece by piece. They replaced Braylon Edwards and Cotchery with Derek Mason and Plaxico Burress, which was a complete disaster. And the thing started to kind of crumble and fall apart. And that's why I'm starting here at 2012, where you kind of had those first signs of rebuilding, owner meddling, even though you can go back to Favre really with that. But with 2012, and really this is also to break down the lack of value in these games when you get to November and December. 2012, just looking at it, 3-6, season's done. Still another 3 home games in November and December, completely worthless. That was also, ironically, Tim Tebow's first year with the Jets, a move that was clearly designed to sell tickets and PSLs, which the Jets were struggling to do. You get to 2013, and ironically, this was actually one of Rex Ryan's best coaching jobs. A roster that had zero talent, a rookie Geno Smith that was forced to start after Sanchez got hurt in the Snoopy Bowl. They gave you some excitement throughout the year, but I think everybody knew that team essentially had a ceiling. I remember a lot of those games were essentially worthless down the stretch as far as their resale value at 5-5, and then actually losing back-to-back games at Buffalo, at Baltimore. That pretty much sealed that season. You go to 2014, and this year was a complete disaster. We all remember Rex Ryan and John Idzik, their last season with the Jets, an offseason where Idzik essentially spent no money, a lot of moves that, Dimitri Patterson going AWOL, and, Mike Goodson, moves that were just designed essentially, it seemed like, to tank in a year where I think fans really wanted to give Rex Ryan at least one more shot. And you knew it right away. 1-3, 1-4, 1-5. 1-8. Your season's done. The Fire John Idzik campaign got started. It was a complete disaster, a complete mess. And you felt the anger from the fan base because we're paying these premium prices for all these tickets and all these games for those that invested in a PSL, and you're not getting any fun. You're not getting any postseason games. The excitement from the back-to-back championship games had completely worn off at that point. So the Jets ultimately rebuild with Maccagnan and Todd Bowles. And year one, you could say it was a success from the standpoint that you had meaningful games down the stretch. The team went on a 5-game winning streak. You had Fitzmagic. Marshall had a career year. There was a little bit of buzz for especially that Patriot game down the stretch, but then all that excitement in one game made it completely worthless, losing at Buffalo to end the year. And really, sadly, 2015, 9 years ago, that was pretty much the last time that Jet fans had games to go to in December that had any meaning at all whatsoever. 2016, you get talked into bringing Fitzpatrick back. That year started off terribly. You had the 6-interception game in Kansas City. You got Sheldon and Brandon Marshall fighting in the locker room. Geno Smith, he got a start, and then he ended up getting hurt. The year was a complete wash. And even worse, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, essentially 6 games that you had to go to as a fan where you didn't want to be there. You couldn't sell your tickets. I remember at that point, that was where you were starting to get fed up to the point where it's like, I don't want to go, but I also can't sell my tickets. They are worthless. Following year, same kind of shit. This was the Josh McCown year where they actually started 3-2. I was at the game in Cleveland where they were tied for first place, and then they went completely downhill after that. They lost 3 in a row. And again, you're talking about every single home game in November and in December that is worthless. 2018, Sam Darnold's rookie year. They had the luxury of trying to sell it as a rebuild, to sell their future franchise quarterback. So you had the buzz surrounding that, which quickly wore off early in the year. He misses 3 games. Everything starts going downhill. The season's essentially over. And again, November, December, and even October this year, those games were all but worthless. 2019, same thing. The New York Jets in year one of Adam Gase, a head coach that never should have been hired. The New York Jets start 0-4, and all the signs that the New York Jet fans had seen from the past almost decade now were starting to continue to show. It was a losing culture. This head coach had a losing mindset. He clearly did not get the fan base. He clearly couldn't relate to the players, just a lot of weird shit, the press conferences, his post-game stuff. You could sense right away what the vibe was. And really the next 2 years, thankfully one of them obviously in 2020 was completely washed by COVID. But even this year in 2019, after the 0-4 start, we knew what Adam Gase was. We all remember the Fire Gase campaign, just like the Idzik campaign, the fans knew what it was. And so even though we didn't have to buy tickets in 2020, we still had to sit around and watch the New York Jets try to tank for Trevor Lawrence and then ultimately fall short. Now, by falling short, we were left with the decision, do you draft Zach Wilson or do you try to build around Sam and try to build a roster? Joe Douglas decides to go with his own quarterback, so we're sold again on another rebuild, first-time head coach, first-time quarterback. So this year was a complete wash. 0-3 to start the year. We knew what the team was. They were going nowhere. It was a throwaway year, stockpile draft picks, build for the future, on the hamster wheel, right? So, I mean, this is a year you could even, after the first 3 games, 0-3, your season's done. You've got 7 games that are now completely worthless. Following year, you actually had a little buzz after 6-3. I think there was a glimmer of hope when Zach Wilson had that stretch where he was kind of checking the ball down a little bit. He was showing at least some progress as far as not turning it over as much, and you were hoping that maybe he could turn a corner. You had the excitement around Breece and Garrett Wilson, and even Sauce, offensive, defensive rookie of the year. There was a little bit of buzz where it felt like you were starting to build something, and then the excitement around the quarterback switch with Mike White lasted the 1 game with Chicago, and then you lose 6 in a row down the stretch. Last 2 games, again, nobody wanted to go. You go to last year, a year that I don't want to speak for anybody else, but after the debacle the following year, losing 6 in a row, I was at my breaking point. I was done. I wasn't ready to sit through another rebuild. I had canceled my tickets. Once the trade for Aaron Rodgers happened, they sucked me back in, and I said, you know what? There's a 2-year window here with a Hall of Fame quarterback and a young roster. Even the Jets can't possibly screw this up, right? So they actually talked me into renewing, and I said, you know what? I'm going to give it 2 years, and if nothing happens, I'm out. I'm done. And in 4 plays, I've got 8 games that I have no desire at all to go through. None. You guys all saw me last year. They sucked the life out of me after that first game. Nobody wanted to sit in that building and watch Zach Wilson, who never should have been the backup quarterback anyway. And then you go to this year. What a joke. What is the argument for keeping your tickets as a season ticket holder? It is all such a shame because the Jet fan and their fan base, they are loyal, they are supportive, they are diehards. And for 3 out of the last 4 years, prices have gone up. You continue to get a shit product. You continue to get slapped in the face every which way. Like I was saying at the beginning, there are no benefits that come with being a season ticket holder of the New York Jets. There are none. And again, if you want to go for family reasons, it's tradition, buy them on the secondary market. And even then, if you still want to go to games, go on road trips. Go check out other stadiums. Stadiums that are 10 times nicer than MetLife. I can't imagine why, at this point, anybody could possibly want to renew their tickets. For all the support that we show as fans, none of it ever gets returned. At some point, you reach a breaking point where you got to see some results before you ever want to step foot in that building again. And I never thought I would reach that day because I loved so much and looked forward to so much going to these games. And that's how much they've killed all of it. All the excitement, all the energy, all the vibes, slowly but surely, starting with the PSLs, through all this losing, all the failed promises, all the failed rebuilds, and nothing ever gets given back. They just raise prices, They try to have a lockdown on their social media. Like the one other benefit you might want to cite about being a season ticket holder, you get to go to training camp. Right? You get early access to reserve your tickets to training camp. And even then, try to get a little content for your fans and followers. Nope. Jets got to have it first. They need those clicks too. So what do they give back? Mind you also, speaking personally here, because I was the one that was talked to, go on our Instagram Reels, go on our YouTube Shorts. Any video that I post, it's positive, it promotes the team. As far as like the training camp stuff, the videos, the highlights, I'm not giving formations away. I'm not giving audibles away. I'm not giving hand signals away. Nope. Jets got to have it first. So again, I ask, if it's not training camp, if it's not postseason tickets, if it's not resale value, what are the perks to being a Jets season ticket holder? I look forward to reading the comments. Talk to you guys later.